Just got to ask you a little bit about your career, because we haven't seen much of you on the tour, and looking back, you've actually only been competing for 2 or 3 years. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. My first time in the World Cup, in the bouldering World Cup, was 2012. I did half the season, so I did 4 of the comps. Last year I did another 4 comps, so half the season. And this year I thought, if I'm going to do it, let's give it a good go. So I'm going to do 7 of the 8.
Yeah. And you made the final in Slovenia towards the end of last year. Was that the impetus? Did that give you the boost to say, right, let's do it?
Yeah, that's true. I suppose I always felt like I could. I was always like just missing out on making it through. My first year competing, I qualified equal first in Innsbruck, but just didn't make it through the semi-final round. So it was always like kind of there, kind of not. And then after making finals last year, I was like, yeah, come on, I can do this. So here I am, trying again.
And this season's been good for you. You've had 2 finals. You missed out by 1 position in Baku, so it's going pretty well.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I definitely can't complain, that's for sure. As you said, 2 finals. I've made, well, not including this comp, I made 4 semis out of the 5 comps. Touch and go on this one, we'll see. I think I'm sitting in around 12th, 13th position at the moment, but there's some very strong climbers coming behind me, so I don't know. I won't hold my breath, but fingers crossed.
And one of the things, you actually didn't start. A lot of people started as lead climbers and then went into bouldering. Even Anna Stur said she was a lead climber to start with, and then she couldn't get in the team. She went to bouldering, suddenly became world number 1. What is it with yourself? Have you never done lead? Is bouldering much more popular in Australia?
No, it's definitely not more popular. I used to do lead back in Australia. In the Aussie comps, I tend to do a lot better on the lead comps than I do on the bouldering comps. I just enjoy the bouldering comps a lot more. I enjoy the process of them. I enjoy the challenge of it. As far as what I do in my spare time, like if I'm not competing, I just love bouldering. So that's my real passion. So I don't know, if I come back to Europe later on in the year, you never know. I might give a World Cup a go, like a lead World Cup a go, but we'll see.
And I've got to mention, you're 29. You're actually quite old for a climber, which, you've come in late on the day. Is that just, is there any particular reason to that? Did you just start climbing at international level? Once you actually watched some of the competitions, I thought, I could do some of that?
I suppose you're right. I was the oldest guy in the finals last weekend. I'm sort of one of the oldest guys on the season this year. I don't feel that old. Fortunately, it takes a bit longer to warm up, of course, than I used to. I suppose I always thought I'd do World Cups. I always had the idea. I was like, I'll do it one day. But it just never. I suppose I never did it. I was always doing other things, like going through an apprenticeship. So there was 4 years gone, and then moving on and we opened up a climbing gym, so that was keeping me pretty busy. And then it just sort of one thing after another, and I was just always like, I'll do it one day. And then sort of finally got to the point I was like, geez, I really have to start doing it. So that's when I was like, yeah, okay, do it. Like, book a flight, this is what I'm doing. That's why I gave it a go in 2012. So
well, it's great to see you doing it. You're making finals. It must be difficult for you as well in that you're not competing at the European youth level. Like, a lot of the European climbers, and even in North America here, they have a very full and fulsome sort of list of events and tournaments and competitions they can go to. It must have been a lot harder for yourself.
Yeah, no, definitely, because I suppose from the start of the World Cup season this year, the previous comp that I did was pretty much the World Cup last year. So it was 12 months between comps. Comps back in Australia, a lot of them I run at my climbing gym. So I don't actually have the opportunity to compete back there. So it is a bit of the shock of the system to come into it. So that's why it was really good this year to come in, start off in China, a bit more of a warm-up, and then progress through the season that way, trying to stay with it.
Do you also feel that you're the sort of leader from Australia for a bunch of Australian climbers that could come through? Because, we haven't really seen an Australian climber on the IFSC World Tour in the past. There's a few of you lads here today, though, isn't there?
Yeah.
And so, do you feel that, some of the, I notice on the chat room on Twitter, there's a lot of people supporting you. Do you feel that there might be a surge of athletes coming through based on what you're doing?
Yeah, well, I suppose we always had Chris Red Parsons. He was doing a few comps in the years past. Unfortunately, he hasn't joined us this year and didn't do that much last year. Prior to that, we had Sam Berry, female, doing quite a bit. But I suppose this comp, Canada, we had 5 competitors from Australia, which is the biggest. I believe it's the biggest we've ever had at an adult World Cup, which is great. We've definitely got a few really strong juniors coming through, so hopefully they stay psyched and stay in the sport and continue to compete. So I think Tom's keen to come back last year. He's definitely a very strong competitor, so it's great to have him here with me.
That's all great. And one question I must ask as well about the problems of a climber from Australia.
Yep.
It's so many events in Europe, some in China, so they're your local ones, and ones in North America. You have to travel a long way for every single event, and so getting over jet lag and even the cost of the flights must be pretty tough.
Yeah, that's true. It's unfortunately we don't have a lot of funding provided to us in Australia, so it is pretty much all self-funded. So yeah, once I leave for the start of the tour, that's it. I've left home, so I've been away from home for I think 5 weeks now, living out of a backpack suitcase, travelling between country to country. I think I'm in my 8th, 9th country at the moment, and 10 flights or something like that, and I'll return home in a month's time. So it definitely does take it out of you, that's for sure.
So just Laval to come, and then you can go home and get back to normal life with the family and the business. I must ask you about the business back in Melbourne. It's obviously a climbing gym, as you intimated earlier. How's that going? Are you finding a lot of people in the Melbourne area are getting into climbing there?
Yeah, it's definitely a growing sport. It's very much. We've been in the business for about 5 years now. Did it with opened it up with my parents. Just a month before we left, myself and my fiancée Claire actually purchased the business. So we were there for a month and then ran away, left it in the hands of Josh and Will. They're doing a fantastic job to keep it going. Couldn't do it without them. So I definitely couldn't do these comps without them.